Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Okay, so everybody was on the edge of their seat there as Vladimir Putin's plane was landing on the tarmac. Now obviously the Democrats were probably engaging in some demonic rituals, hoping the talks fall through and President Trump fails. And we had the opposite expectation, hoping that things go well. And really as this whole event started, it started on shaky grounds. It got a little hectic there as Vladimir Putin landed on Alaskan soil. Before he could even take a breath, he was swarmed by the American press, and boy were they barking from pretty much every direction.
Press. Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Let's go. Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Let's go. Come on.
The look on his face said it all. Certainly a rocky start, but the ball game isn't over, and in typical Trump fashion, it seems like despite the Democrat doom and gloom, things went pretty damn well. Let's take a look at what happened. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so the president told us that there was a press conference after the talks, and if things didn't go well, he wouldn't be there, so if he shows up for the event, or the post-event press conference with Vladimir Putin, then that's a sign that things went well, and well, the press conference happened, which tells you pretty much everything you need to know about how President Trump thinks it went.
Just to put it very quickly, I'm going to start making a few phone calls and tell them what happened, but we had an extremely productive meeting, and many points were agreed to. There are just a very few that are left. Some are not that significant. One is probably the most significant, but we have a very good chance of getting there. We didn't get there, but we have a very good chance of getting there. I would like to thank President Putin and his entire team, whose faces, who I know in many cases, other than that, whose faces I get to see all the time in the newspapers. You're almost as famous as the boss. But especially this one right over here. But we had some good meetings over the years, right? Good productive meetings over the years, and we hope to have that in the future. But let's do the most productive one right now. We're going to stop really 5, 6, 7,000, thousands of people a week from being killed, and President Putin wants to see that as much as I do. So again, Mr. President, I'd like to thank you very much, and we'll speak to you very soon and probably see you again very soon.
So according to the general tone and the president's announcement, it seems like things went well. Maybe not every detail has been ironed out just yet. And of course, the Ukrainians still need to get involved. President Trump said he's going to get on the phone with them immediately, but it seems like most points have been agreed on, and I guess the rest is to be finalized. And it's not exactly surprising considering we were reporting that the Russians had received a draft proposal that they were mostly in agreement with. I played you guys this clip of a Russian diplomat.
Было предложение стороны американцев, которое нам представляется вполне приемлемым.
А где возможное место встречи какое?
Но я пока не могу говорить, хотя оно в принципе определено.
Считанные дни, это значит уже на следующей неделе? Вы же сказали дни, а не недели.
Ориентировочно, да, на следующей неделе.
So this is actually good news. Vladimir Putin certainly seemed genuinely pleased, even at one point during the post-press conference, inviting Trump to visit Moscow. Trump, of course, declined for now, but didn't shut the door entirely.
Thank you very much, Vladimir.
Next time in Moscow.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I'll get a little heat on that one, but I could see it possibly happening.
And that, of course, has the left rabid and furious. How could he ever suggest something like that? But I think unequivocally, if your head is on your shoulders correctly, that was for sure the right move. Obviously firm and rightfully and righteously firm, but open as well. It's not time just yet, but it should happen eventually. If Vladimir Putin makes some real concessions, I mean, commits to a true ceasefire, signs a peace treaty, maybe agrees to trade stipulations, oversight, or reforms in Russia, then yes, absolutely, a trip to Moscow, and frankly, that would be historic. And also, I think that's pretty much the goal here, the hope that a want for peace can supersede the partisan bickering. And while it seems President Trump is leaving the door, let's say, half open, on the other hand, the Democrats, well, they're not anywhere close. They can't handle any of this. We're right back to the 2018-2019 era of Donald Trump is cozying up to dictators, fake news era. Of course, the Democrats come in and just inject venom into the process, nitpicking every single little angle, looking for every opportunity to paint this whole thing as a loss. And I'm sure they have a lot of motivations to do that politically. And actually, this moment ought to speak to exactly that.
I'd like to remind you that in 2022, during the last contact with the previous administration, I tried to convince my previous American colleague that the situation should not be brought to the point of no return when it would come to hostilities. And I said it quite directly back then. That is a big mistake.
Today,
Today, when President Trump saying that if he was the president back then, there will be no war. And I'm quite sure that it would indeed be so. I can confirm that. I think that overall, me and President Trump have built a very good, business-like and trustworthy contact. And I have every reason to believe that moving down this path, we can come, and the sooner the better, to the end of the conflict in Ukraine.
I mean, that's absolutely huge. Basically, an admission that the last Democrat administration's foreign policy played a role in his decision to invade Ukraine. That means that Biden and Kamala made that war more likely. I don't know, what could it be? Maybe Kamala Harris going to Europe and announcing that Ukraine will be joining NATO wasn't exactly a brilliant foreign policy move after all, now was it? Maybe, just maybe, it had something to do with it. But that's a moment that's obviously got Democrats freaking seething, and I also think it's very true, because the Democrats were too busy demonizing Vladimir Putin, and there was obviously no interest in diplomacy at all. Given all the movements on the border at the time, if Trump was president, he would have acted. He probably would have got to the table even before it happened. And you may ask, well, how do I know that? And well, it's because it's happening right now in real time. President Trump seems to be fighting for a positive outcome, and the Democrats, as I stated earlier, are just injecting venom. And I think their reaction to the whole event is quite revealing to that. They're hyper-fixated on all these negative narratives. They don't want to debate the actual merit of what happened. They'll just tell you that Vladimir Putin got the optics win that he was looking for, even though Donald Trump pulled him out of a frickin' plane on American soil, totally mogged the guy, and had him post in front of all these graphics that kept saying, "Pursuing peace" everywhere. Oh yeah, certainly the optics that evil, bloodthirsty warmonger Vladimir Putin is looking for. Oh, and I might as well add to that, to continue in his quest for world domination, just like Hitler from World War II, Vladimir Putin wants to take all of Europe. I mean, come on. The Democrats don't want to have an actual conversation. They don't want to acknowledge President Trump's successes, so instead they pivot to the optics, the handshake, the body language, the tone. They make it seem like this whole thing was a humiliation ritual for President Trump, but it's the same thing we've seen a million times. Frame every single development in the most negative way possible, because giving Trump any credit at all is their political demise. They would rather the conflict drag on, sipping on their lattes as the Russians and Ukrainians burn through human bodies and resources. They would rather that than admit that Donald Trump's approach is working. Just goes to show how broken the left's priorities are. But at the end of the day, again, like I said, the pursuit of peace should rise above the partisan squawking. And at the end of the day, I don't care about the petty political games, folks. I just want peace. And for the first time in a long time, this meeting felt like an actual, valuable, productive step towards it. And now, of course, phase 2, if President Trump can get the Ukrainians to the table, if he can somehow broker something lasting as a neutral arbiter, well then what do you think history is going to remember? That historic moment? That achievement? Or the petty squabbles, the petty frickin' sound bites from these disingenuous Democrats? Well, frankly, I think a 2-year-old can answer that question. It seems like things are headed in the right direction. Let's keep hoping and praying for that. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.